If you're looking to perfect your 1/4 inch seam allowance, the Husqvarna Viking Designer EPIC 2 has a couple things that are going to make it easy. Plus, I'm going to give you a few of my own tips that will help you a lot. So we're just talking about using a straight stitch. Usually I like a 2.0 stitch length, or just tell the machine that you are working on a slightly woven light fabric and then do a seam. That way that stitch length automatically comes down to that shorter stitch length. Next in this machine is the 1/4 inch foot. Has red marks all over the place, but the key here that this foot comes with is the part where the integrated dual feed can come down from the back side of the machine and fill in that area and help keep the two fabrics flowing nice and even together. So you don't get to the end of your seam and have kind of that lower level shorter than the top level because the feed dogs have pulled it in too far. So that helps kind of keep everything going nice and smooth. Now, other things that make or break a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance is your needles and your thread. So by putting the right needles in, I'm a fan of the thinner needles. So a quilting needle size 75 or a Microtex needle size 70. Those are both sharp needles, and you think, well, needles should be sharp, right? But they aren't sharp. Universal needles are kind of a mix between a ballpoint and a sharp needle. But if you want an accurate seam allowance when you're going through multiple layers of, say, intersections of triangle points, half square triangles and such, that's where you want the sharper needle. Plus, if you have a thinner thread, a good common thread people use is the RFL 50 weight thread that fits nicely in these smaller needles. And then when you press open your seams, the thickness of thread is not going to kind of take away from the seam allowance. So if you've ever found your blocks kind of measuring instead of 12.5 inches like your pattern says, they're measuring like 12.25 inches, well, you're losing a little seam allowance every time you sew if your thread is thick or a normal thread, because as you press that open, got to go up and over that thread. So my favorite is a thinner thread. I have been known to even use some of our embroidery weight thread. That's a nice thin thread and presses beautifully. And then also on the bobbin case door cover, you're going to notice that there are lines on that will allow you to follow the 1/4 inch. And I'm also a fan of taking the fabric, and as I set it on that 1/4 inch mark, that I'm setting it just to the slight left of the mark. So it's almost giving me that scant 1/4 inch. So by the time I'm all lined up with my thinner thread, my sharper needles, and the edge of my presser foot, the part that's in front of the needle that is, you will get a perfect 1/4 inch seam every time you sew.